Welcome back to LizCapism. In February, on the display mannequin of my favorite antique store, there was a gorgeous 1950s party dress. It's blue-gray lace all over and big pink ribbons as detail. It called out to me. Not only that, it was my size. For my birthday, I treat myself and bought it. For more than I am proud of. But I haven't given it a good outing for photo shoots or wearing in general yet because I didn't have any appropriate 1950s foundations. So I decided to make some. This was an ambitious project for me, as I had never made anything with shaped breast cups or with flimsy lingerie-style material. I chose a pattern for a long-line bra and coordinating garter belt/girdle. The 1950s had lots of different foundations and undergarments. This is the set that appealed to me. I knew that putting it on would put me in that perfect 50s mood. I didn't have the best time with this pattern, so I'm not sharing which one I used. I don't want to badmouth the creator in case it was due to my inexperience, but it was such a challenge to make a good fit that my final pieces and assembly look virtually nothing like the original. I also won't talk a lot about the construction of the garment. Since it was a first for me in so many ways, most of the construction was me desperately trying to make something utterly foreign to me with no experience and making it up as I went. I'll probably do a video later on about the process and my struggle and successes, but I'm not feeling that right now. I don't want to talk about what I'm doing, I want to talk about foundations. The video will just be a convenient backdrop, and then I'll show you the final result at the end of the video. So, getting down to the topic at hand. Why are foundations so important? Incidentally, when costumers use the word foundations, it's not because we're squeamish about the word underwear or any other words used to describe what we in the 21st century think of as underwear. It's because when recreating fashions from previous eras, we're not only talking about clothing that was meant to cover our private parts, we're also talking about shapewear, supports, padding, and all manner of other bits that made up anything not visible from the outside. Foundations can be the elements that are sewn into the garment itself in some cases. So we're not being prudish, we're being broad. So the 50s. Without rehashing an often told story too much, the 50s are a watershed moment in fashion history, largely due to the Carolle and Huit lines by Dior, first released in 1947. Quote, "The silhouette was characterized by a small nipped-in waist and a full skirt falling below mid-calf length, which emphasized the bust and hips, as epitomized by the bar suit from the first collection. This came to be known as the New Look, though Dior didn't call it that. While not universally liked, this look became a sensation after the fabric rationing during World War II and lasted well into the 50s. This look has come to signify the 1950s for many folks, whether or not they are familiar with fashion history. So why was it important for me to have these foundations for this dress? First of all, while I do have the same rough proportions that the decade calls for, they're not as pronounced without a little help. Secondly, this dress is an antique, and so I did not want to put any pressure on the seams that I didn't have to. I also don't feel good about altering it too drastically. I'll be making another video about the minor changes I plan to make to that dress, but I wanted most of the work to be done by the foundations in order to save the dress. Lastly, if none of the other reasons were enough for you, I have found that nothing puts you in the mood of a period than going through the process of putting on era-appropriate foundations. I can't tell you how many times I have put on my 18th century shift and stays and immediately felt transported into the historical drama of my most romantic sensibilities. When I finally put these pieces on and did the final reveal shoot, I felt like $1,000,000, like the cutest little pinup model the world had ever seen. When you don't have the right foundations and just throw a beautiful and painstakingly sewn gown over, in my case, some undies and a very unstructured bralette, it feels very much like I'm going to a Halloween party. This isn't always bad, but it's a very different mood. Forget walking in another man's shoes. You can really get in a person's head by walking a mile in their undergarments. I mean, not their undergarments. You know what I mean. Also, foundations are a relatively under-researched part of fashion. We know what some people wore from paintings and carvings, and once we get into the age of book printing, things become a little bit clearer, although not that much clearer until photography. But we still have big unanswered questions about things like how women dealt with menstruation, how children's underwear changed as they aged as well as through the ages. Were the things that were written down recommendations by a select few, or were they universal? A lot of these questions, even the ones that we have definitive answers for, only cover information about wealthy, white, Western, cisgender, straight people. What about folks of color? What about the poorer classes? What about queer and trans folks? There are companies today that specialize in shapewear for all kinds of body types, including trans bodies and plus-size figures. There are companies that produce stockings and shapewear for a huge variety of skin colors that were never available before. There are more options than there have ever been. But it wasn't always the case. I will never be in the position of putting on a quote-unquote nude girdle and having it stand out starkly from my much darker skin, or having a corset emphasize all of the things about my body I wish weren't there. But we can take the information we have, and the educated guesses we have made, and start to build an understanding. If you don't think that foundation garments are important to culture, history, and fashion, you haven't been paying close enough attention. A quick note for those of you who know me personally. In the next few moments, there will be footage of me in these undergarments, posing as you might see in old pinup pictures. If that's not a side of me you'd like to see, I recommend clicking away now. Thanks for watching! For the rest of you, if you haven't already, please subscribe for more history, costumes, and sewing. If you are watching this before Sunday, August the 2nd, make sure to check out the Sunday Undies CoCoVid hashtag on Instagram. Show off your fantastic foundations, and I will be reposting them all day. See you next time!
my stew. You will always be my necessity, I'd be lost without you. You're the starch in my collar, you're the lace in my shoe. You will always be my necessity, I'd be lost without you. Most men tell love tales, and each phrase dovetails. You've heard each known way, this way is my own way. You're the sail of my love boat, you're the captain and crew. You will always be my necessity, I'd be lost without you.